You ever wake up one day, planning on playing Vintage Story, and decide, I'm tired of the easy world. No more grass, no more trees, no more plants. I just want sand. Sand for 40 hours, and scorching temperatures to go with it.
That sounds like a lot more fun to me.
Well, if you have, then you're like me, and that's a completely different issue. But then you'd also be interested in this desert challenge for 1 year in vanilla Vintage Story. Let's start with the basics. Vintage Story will only spawn what you would consider a classic desert when it's really hot and really dry. So in order to start this world and have it actually be a challenge, I needed to mess with the world settings, because it's really not possible to find a large, expansive desert in a normal world, unlike the Arctic. At least, that was what I got when I generated 5 different worlds and tried this.
In this challenge, I set my world to scorching hot and hyper-arid climate. This is because I want just sand in this world. I want a true classic desert, and yes, while I know that deserts can vary in temperature and climates and everything, I wanted what you would typically think of as a desert. That seemed the most reliable to me as a polar opposite to the Arctic challenge I've already done.
And because I think I'm a better player than I was with my Arctic challenge and even my Skylands challenge, I'm going to play this on wilderness survival settings with a couple of tweaks because I'm not quite that good yet. Alright, enough about the boring stuff, let's get into the game. Now, like I said before, I think I've gotten a little bit better at this game, and because every single one of these challenges so far, including my main playthrough, has been with a different class, this one I'm gonna play as Blackguard. And that just seemed really fun and really interesting, and also I felt like I could manage my hunger a little bit. The very first thing that happens is I spot a trader next to me, which is really refreshing after the Arctic challenge and the Skylands challenge, where I didn't have any of those traders. This one was a building trader, and I thought that was pretty cool because I don't have a lot of these in my main world. Shortly after that, I'm on my hike, and I just notice how beautiful it is out here. I mean, yeah, it's mostly sand and gravel, but like, look at these floating land masses and stuff. I just absolutely love this in Vintage Story, and it's some of the stuff that I miss when Minecraft fixed some of its terrain generation. We come across now to our second building materials trader, which I mark on the map, and I mark them in light brown. Now is the time for my first food, and I realize that there aren't really any plants other than saguaro fruit around here, so I grab some and I'll eat some. But I didn't know this before I started playing, but they actually have a healing property, which is really cool. It's not much, it's like 1 HP or so, but that's really cool. It's also worth noting that the desert is sort of pioneering territory. When it comes to stuff like cactus growth cycles, whether or not they flower, whether or not the flowers will produce fruit, people don't really know, at least not on the wiki. So if you happen to have any knowledge of the desert, feel free to share with the community because it's kind of dead at the moment, and for me personally, I'm figuring out most things on my own. And trader number 3, you would have guessed it, building materials trader. Since I go into these challenges semi-blind, my only strategy at this point was to scour for ruins and basically nomad for a little while. Though I do kind of end up staying in this location, it was really just me searching for things because I kind of wanted to see if this was like the Arctic and if I could find most of my valuable supplies from ruins and stuff like that. I found some gazelle, but they have a huge detection range, so I spent a lot of my time kind of crouch throwing spears trying to kill one. And of course, there's a sandstorm that kind of happens from time to time during this too, depending on elevation. It's really cool and it's really atmospheric, but I'm starving in classic me fashion, so I really have to get my spear hunting skills down. Also, Blackguard doesn't have great range damage, so this is gonna take a while. This last hit ended me around these little caves here. So this is where I ended up camping for the night. As you can see, it's getting quite dark. It's really hard to hit this gazelle, but finally I managed to get it, and I managed to carve it up, but this is where I have to stay for the night. And now it's on to making a shelter. So that goes to problem number 1. How does one do that in wilderness survival? where sand and gravel fall constantly and will cause these massive cave-ins. By the way, this is exactly why I have terrain gravity on. I wanted to have this challenge, and I knew that I was going to be running into mostly sand, so I figured it'd be real fun to have this. Well, the answer to the gravity problem is actually fanned cobblestone, which is something I never usually make because I'm not usually around sand and gravel like this. But it's actually perfect for this. So, I don't have much. It's kind of a struggle. It takes 7 rocks plus a sand plus a gravel to make 2 cobblestone, which is just not a lot. So my first shelter for the first night kind of ends up looking like this. I sort of have to abuse the fact that falling blocks like sand and gravel can't fall on top of the campfire. And that gives me a 1 block window here that I have to fight off drifters because there is no grace period. There is no safety window.
There is no Dana, only soul.
What a lovely singing voice you must have.
The next morning was spent getting some sticks and wood so that I could continue making tools and surviving, but I was also looking for seeds, so I wanted to get every single branch that I could, because I wanted to start a tree farm. I don't care what type of wood it is right now, but there's like 10 trees around me, and I'm assuming trees will take a really long time to grow, so I'm starting that as early as possible. Ever in need of food, I built this monstrosity of a trap, which I really did not enjoy making because
It's so ugly, you could almost feel sorry for it.
but I saw gazelles and I'm hungry, so that's what I'm gonna do. Oh my god, it's actually working somehow. I'm just gonna do this real quick. And look at that. My first non-builder trader is a treasure hunter. That's pretty cool, actually. I guess I could start the story if I really wanted to. The next night, the house is a little bit better. I managed to make a little bit more cobble, so I actually have some room to move. It's a little annoying, though, because anytime I have to go outside, I have to break cobblestone with my fists, which takes a minute, and yeah, that's kinda not fun. What's also annoying is I can't sleep, so it's time for the no bed dance. Oh, look at that. It's morning now. And better yet, I made a discovery. These trees that are over by this lake are not just pine leaves or something. These are acacia leaves. And that means potentially tannin for leather. Now, one thing the player's guide mentions is that if you manually harvest leaves instead of just chopping down the trunk, you have a better chance of getting sticks and seeds from those leaves, even if they're not the branchy ones. And so since these are actually just piles of leaves, like bushes basically, I have a pretty decent chance of getting a seed from them. It takes a few of these trees, but eventually I do get a few of them and I immediately start growing them. This will take a long time, like over 30 days to grow one of these, but it's 100% worth it since acacia trees have not been spotted yet. Since it's getting dark again, I decided I want to have a better location for my house. This area that I have is okay, but it is really just because I needed a fire to cook something, and I've just spent the day hunting, so I have a little bit of meat. I figure I'll pack up and I'll move to a place that's a little bit better. I'm thinking over by those acacia seedlings, because I'm kinda gonna want those for leather anyway, and there's ponds over there, which means I can start panning soon. A little bit more of the no bed dance, and it is the morning of day 4. And on this day, I discover a commodities trader that's not too far away from me. Honestly, this is a pretty solid find because there's a lot of materials here that I don't think I'm going to be able to get very quickly. And just outside that trader are some ruins, but unfortunately there's really nothing here. I searched all around and I didn't see anything. That's honestly more common than I'd like to admit. Most of my ruins kinda suck. I haven't found too much. So I guess the desert wasn't very kind to them either. Next, my big brain idea is to climb this mountain, which of course is covered in gravel and sand, and because of sideways instability, these blocks are probably going to fall and kick me off, but I have to try anyway. I thought I saw something on top of this mountain, and I really need to know what's up here. And yes, I'm starving again. That shouldn't be a shock to anyone anymore. Not at this rate. Somehow I managed to make it up top and get some dirt, which is actually really awesome because I haven't seen any dirt yet. This isn't great dirt, it's low fertility, so that means growing crops out of it's gonna not be great, But that's a problem for future me. Right now, I'm just happy to know that dirt exists and that I can possibly do some farming with this. In the Arctic, dirt was pretty rare, minus the weird terrain generation that happened. So, you know, I really thought that I was going to have to rely on cracked vessels and stuff again to drop me some medium fertility soil. It's good to see that there's more here in the desert, but it's of lesser quality, so we'll see how much I like that. I'm definitely going to have to work on making terra preta at some point. It's 2 a.m. on day 5. I'm definitely not starving again. Building materials trader. And now for something actually really cool, an eclipse. I'm going to take the next few seconds to really, truly appreciate this. Running through a sandstorm, I find another trader, and this one is an artisan, which is actually going to be really helpful because they can buy some of the gems that I'll probably get from panning bony soil and whatnot, and they sell the different types of clay vessels for storage. Because clay is actually hard to find out here, this is appreciated. I finally found some ruins, and these are actually interesting. I'm so excited to finally get rocks and grass. Gee, amazing. It's not like there's already all of that here in the desert anyway. I better make sure I lock away this precious material in a clay vessel of my own before I die. But thankfully, the whole journey that brought me out here led me to... let's go find another one. You know, when I said let's find another one, I didn't actually mean this. Okay, so as you can tell, the goal of day 5 and day 6 now is to be searching for traders that actually have things useful to me. Since there are so many around me, I figure this is gonna be the way I survive. Clay is almost impossible to find. I don't want to pan for literally everything, and thankfully, finally, the game gave me a survival goods trader, which is really awesome because at the very least, I'll be able to trade charcoal, which is not hard to get. Conveniently, not too far away is a second survival goods trader, which is awesome because that means when I go to do trades, I can check both of them. I noticed on my map this thing that looked like a trader, and I've seen this before but kind of forgot they exist. This is a caravan. Sometimes there are multiple traders. Unfortunately, but fortunately, there's actually a cooking pot, actually a couple cooking pots that I can take and use. And yeah, it's actually worth to take both of those cooking pots because you can make multiple meals and have one on reserve should you have enough food. It's kind of the alternative to having a crock, since a crock costs some clay to craft and I don't have any clay right now. Oh look, a big cart. That might be a luxury trader. I could really use one of those because that might actually get me some gears for trading with others. Are you getting tired of this joke yet? Please believe me when I say that I am too. Please, 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 please do not be another builder trader. Oh my god, finally! Now the reason why this was such an amazing find is because he sells tree seeds like oak seeds and also sells crop seeds. In addition to that, he happened to have a really good deal for 1 gear, giving me 4 bowls of honey, which I don't need the honey, I guess it's food, you know. But what I really want are the bowls for eating things, because I have those 2 cooking pots I just got, and now I have bowls. That means I don't have to get clay in order to make these, I don't have to fire them, and that means that I can finally have some real food, actual meals, which will make me not starve all the time. Hopefully, anyway. Finally back at home, I was able to make a bed and get some sleep, and that meant the start of day 8. Thankfully, Vintage Story was actually kind for once and gave me some fire clay. This is awesome, because now I can make an anvil mold. And yeah, I wanted to make the anvil mold because that's the most expensive of the clay items that I'm gonna make in the early game. I figure I'll get that one out of the way, that way I can start blacksmithing true and proper when I finally get the metal for it. Yeah, I'll need to get a crucible, yeah, I'll need to get a pickaxe mold and hammer mold, but those are problems for later. I might get more fire clay. What I do know is that an anvil mold is expensive, and that needs to be done anyway, so that's what I'm using it for. My first meal in this world is amazing, completely filling me up and making me worry a little bit less about my day-to-day survival. And that's the end of day 8. Yes, I know that seems a little fast, but most of the day was for hunting and for clay forming, so that's pretty much it. I just made a little bit bigger house to expand a bit, and I tried to make a pickaxe mold, but I ran out of fire clay. So that's kind of annoying, and that's a waste of clay, which will definitely not come to bite me in the butt later, I'm sure. My first temporal storm occurs. It's nothing crazy, I just sit in the corner and wait for it to pass. And now, how do I even talk about this next part? Let's just start with this. You like pans? Okay, I know that was a terrible impression, but come on, seriously. 880 times. No, I'm not kidding. I counted. I panned 110 blocks of sand, plus a few more blocks of bony soil, but I'm not even including that. 8 pans per block means I hear 880 times. This was the thing that I feared the most in this challenge. For those of you that watch my Arctic challenge, you'll remember that there is an Arctic supplies vessel to help out in that area for very specific things like clay. Unfortunately, the desert does not have this, it only has the forage cracked vessel, which is very similar, but the desert doesn't spawn them like the Arctic spawns the Arctic ones. While I'm thankful that one of the 2 forage cracked vessels that I found actually had clay, because that saves me about 20-ish clay for the anvil mold, I basically resigned to just having to pan for all the other clay that I want, at least for now. And yeah, it's not like the desert is completely clayless, there are ways of getting natural spawning clay, but it's few and far between.
This right here is partially why I do these challenges in vanilla, though I don't really enjoy my time panning that many blocks. It's here to show you what it's like if you are playing vanilla. People have different mods, they have different things that they run with their game. Everybody's game is just a little bit different. But I want to show you the vanilla experience so that you know what you're getting into and what mods you might want to get if you want to play in the desert.
Anyway, moving past this, I start making a small charcoal pit because I really don't have a lot of wood, so I can only do like a couple stacks at a time basically right now. And the idea was to get calcined flint, that way I can make more fire clay, but I kind of forgot that you have to grind it with a kern, and since I don't have any copper tools at this point, let alone a chisel to help me get a kern or a pickaxe to help me get the stone, this is not gonna work. So that was kind of a mistake, and I'm just gonna have an unformed clay pickaxe mold until I can get more fire clay. And I'm sure most of you know this, but no, you can't mix and match clay. I'm only mentioning this in case you're new to Vintage Story or have not played it. I don't really understand why though, so if anybody in the comments has any like real knowledge of why this is not a thing, either in terms of gameplay or in terms of real life, I'd be curious to know, because I don't know anything about clay, as in real life clay, and I don't know anything about the game's code in terms of why you can't mix and match these things. Probably just due to the specific recipes that fire clay has versus the other clays, but I guess that would be a pretty cool update in the future if a pickaxe mold could be made with all types of clay since it's just a pickaxe mold. Well, at this point, I had panned through 40 sand blocks, so I was ready for a break, and I found this Locust cave over here, and I thought that would be really awesome because this is going to get me some flax twine and other stuff, flax being really hard to get in the desert because there's no flax crops anywhere. I thought this would be really nice, and it was really nice. Ultimately, I was able to make a linen sack to increase my inventory space, which was really appreciated. But not having a lot of options to deal with tier 2 enemies, it took some time to get through this, and in fact I couldn't get through the entire Locust cave because it got dark, and then when I came back even, there were just too many locusts. So I just took what I could. It was a nice find, and I'll come back to it later, I'm sure. But hey, you know what? I found my second temporal gear by farming enemies here. I spent some time around the mountain that I live near trying to find a way up. I thought that maybe if I could get up there, I could see what the temperature was and maybe grow some crops, since it's always like 40 to 50 degrees Celsius down here, and that's definitely too warm to grow anything. And as I was exploring, I found a small little ruin patch just in the side of it that got me some seeds. I think this was basically the way of the game telling me that I need to start a farm soon, because I got seeds from them just as I was thinking about checking the temperature at the top of the mountain. So this prompted me to actually start talking to the traders and seeing what they have for sale, because I thought about buying some seeds from the agriculture trader, so I was going to need some gears. And as I was exploring, I stupidly found one of those awesome pits that you don't see until it's too late, and there was no way out. What's also bad about this is I don't have a pickaxe yet, it's just kind of too early for that for me, and I don't have any sticks or ladders because I don't have a lot of inventory space, and there aren't that many trees, so I only had 3 ladders and I fell all the way down here. And because this is the desert, there was no dirt for me to make any sort of stairs with. Sand will obviously fall due to gravity, and there weren't any stones or gravel nearby for me to make the fanned cobblestone. I tried even to go back into the dark cave to see if I could find anything. There just was really nothing. So I just kinda started jumping off the edge and letting myself die, which was unfortunate. But at least I used a temporal gear so my 5,000 block respawn radius wasn't going to trigger, and I wouldn't have to run very far to get my stuff. Ultimately, I died in a really funny way. I intentionally threw a rock at the wall to ricochet back into me and hurt me, which was kind of fun, actually, not gonna lie. But what sucks about this is this was my first death ever, and I was really upset by that I died in that way and that there was no way out. There could have been any number of possibilities. That could have been a shallower cave with a way to climb out. It could have been a different path that took me outside eventually. If I had a torch, maybe I could have explored. If I had more ladders, I could have climbed out. You know, there's so many options, but it just happened to be the perfect storm of so many things I couldn't deal with. So of course, I'm getting more sticks now to make more ladders so that I can get my stuff. With my things retrieved and a lot of my stuff put back at home, I came back to this pit I saw a gazelle trapped in, and decided that I'm actually far enough along now and don't have to worry about food as much. It's time for me to build an actual pit trap so that I can trap the herds of gazelle and make hunting a little bit easier. Before, my little fence trap thing that I was doing was just barely enough to get them stopped so that they wouldn't be able to run away, and I'd poke them, but occasionally they'd get around the sides or something. I couldn't build an actual fenced-in enclosure. There just weren't enough sticks for that. All of that exploration brings us to the morning of day 17. And because I'm using 6-day months, that means it's actually July 5th, or nearly August. I finally got up the mountain near me so that I could see the temperature and determine if I could grow crops. And actually, it's not too bad. It's about 24 or so degrees Celsius, which is warm, and a lot of crops don't like temperatures like that. Plus, it's only 8 in the morning, so it's gonna get a little bit warmer as the day goes on. But this is reasonable, especially if I eventually get into the warmer crops. Just a quick cut now to my base to show you what I have. This is only 40 blocks in of the 110 I will end up panning, and you can see I have actually quite a bit to work with. And really at this point, I need to focus on clay. I had been delaying it, I had been exploring, but now knowing that I can grow crops up there, I need to get water to the top of the mountain, and the only way to do that is with a bucket, and the only way to do that is to have a saw, and the only way to do that is to have an anvil, and all of the other molds necessary for me to get into the Copper Age. You already know what I have to do, so I'm just gonna go ahead and fast forward a few more hours from now. Alright, I just cut out about 3 hours and 20 minutes of footage of me panning just to get to this point. But finally, I will have the hammer mold done, and it feels great to finally be at this stage. Now, there was no way that I was about to pan for a pickaxe mold, especially when I have one that's nearly done. After getting the hammer mold, an ingot mold, and the crucible all fired, I decided it would be a perfect time now to run to the survival traders I found and buy myself a bronze pickaxe. Since I was out, I also wanted to visit the other traders to see if they would buy anything I had, or if I could buy anything else that would be useful, because trading's probably going to be the way of the future while I get set up with all my other facilities. Back at home, I took all those bits that I got from panning and finally put my clay stuff to work to get me the copper hammer. I had a copper resource deposit nearby too, so I was going to use that for the bulk of the copper that I would need for the anvil. It's actually kind of funny, the spot that I was going to get my copper from was actually a crater from a meteor, so it also shared the same spot with meteoric iron. And that was really weird, but also really cool. I liked having both the resources in the same spot, but I just can't mine meteoric iron yet, so it's kind of in the way and might have impacted the copper ore generation in that area, but that's okay. It worked, it did its thing, and I was happy with that. Thankfully, in all my exploration, I was able to steal the cobblestone from the ruins and make a forge without having to make cobblestone, thus requiring more clay, which was awesome. And I found some tin, so instead of making a copper anvil, I'm just going straight into tin bronze, because I know that I'm going to want a bronze anvil, and I will not be panning for an anvil mold. The very first thing that I make with my copper is a saw. The saw was going to get me the bucket that I needed, and it was going to get me a real door so I wouldn't have to keep putting blocks or weird wattle fences in the way, which was just going to be a nice quality of life update. I don't really care about anything else right now. And the first thing I did with my bucket was fill in all of the flowing water in the ponds near me, because I really don't like that. It's always something that just bothers me, so it was really nice, just aesthetically, to have that not happening anymore. The next thing was to get a barrel full of rot-making compost going, because I don't have any soil higher than low fertility soil, and growing crops in low fertility soil is going to hurt really bad. Every time I go out for wood, by the way, I get the seeds so that I can grow trees, and I grow those trees much, much closer to my house. It just makes life a little easier, and some are going to be growing up soon, like the acacia trees, which I am super excited for. The next thing I make with my copper are nails, because I really want to have some storage. Some items cannot be ground stored, which means they have to either be put in a crate or just held in my inventory, which, now that I have the linen sack from the Locust, it's a little bit better, but it's still getting to be a little annoying, and yeah, I really need a spot to put things. All this time, by the way, between the panning and smithing, puts me at day 27. It is September 3rd. Now that I can actually organize some things, I finally climb up to the top of the mountain to grow my crops. Low fertility soil is not going to be great, but at least it's better than barren soil, which I find in the Arctic naturally. As I'm climbing down, a heavy temporal storm hits, which is really scary because I'm still very squishy, and I do not want to be out here while things are spawning. This is going to spawn like tier 4 enemies more than likely, so I really need to make it back to my house, but thankfully that's not too far away. I can just hear the sounds of things behind me. The storm passes, but some of the guests are still here, so I'm going to take advantage of the fact that these are high-level drifters and they can't get inside my house to maybe get some good loot. And yeah, this is some good loot. 7 rusty gears, a temporal gear, and 2 flax fiber. I'll take that any day. I decided to make my own pine crates instead of just using the aged ones, because I can actually sell the aged ones for a couple of gears here and there, and that's not really that helpful, but it's better than just having them sit there on the ground. And I went out exploring, talking to the traders, but they didn't really have too much, so when I got back home, I made a copper ingot and another hammer just to have a backup hammer, and rested in for the night. Checking in on the status of the crops since it's been a couple of days, I came up here and was pleasantly surprised to see that they're growing okay. I can't really water them because I don't have the clay for a watering can, but despite that, they're doing alright. It does look like it got a little warm though. My rye has scorched, but too bad. I'm gonna have to keep growing it because it's some of the only food I have right now. When I finally get enough spelt seeds, we'll see about growing spelt exclusively, but rye is the thing that I've been finding.
It's October 2nd now, or day 32, and that means that my acacia trees are gonna grow up real soon, like in the next few days. So I finally decide that I can't put it off any longer. I have to go out and find a reliable source of lime or chalk or even borax so that I can actually make leather, because I'm getting tired of having this single linen sack, and I know that a leather backpack will be a nice upgrade. My initial thought is just pick a random direction, so this time I go straight north. I just want to go as far north as I possibly can. I haven't been up there too much other than looking for traders, so I thought maybe there'd be something up there. So now that I've been playing this world for over 30 days, I think it's a good time to take a look at the map, just so that you can see what I'm seeing. This is a freeze frame of some of my footage. I'm currently at a trader's hut, gonna sleep for the night, but I thought it'd be kind of interesting to show you what I've found so far. So all of the brown, remember, are builder traders, all of the bluish kind of color are the clothing traders, the yellow are treasure hunters, the pink are artisans, the red are survival, purple are luxury, green are agriculture, and gray are the furniture builders. And while I'm out exploring looking for limestone, it's not like I'm not checking for ruins either. But my ruins, as I mentioned earlier, are just really poor. Like, I don't find cracked vessels very often, and when I do, they kind of suck. Like, I found a couple ore cracked vessels that are just giving me brown coal, which is cool and all, but like, I kind of am looking for seeds, or maybe fire clay, you know, that type of stuff. And then half the ruins that I explore are like this one, where I dig pretty deep down, I search around, and I just don't find anything. I do find cave ruins from time to time. I do try to avoid going too far into a cave though, because I don't have a lot of health. I have a little bit because I'm a blackguard, but then at the same time, I don't really have armor or a good weapon, so it means I'm pretty squishy. And I'm a bit disappointed that my loot ends up being like rot and torches mostly. Even this one has a downstairs, which has a lot of different loot crates, and you'd think you'd get something interesting out of them. Like, in my Arctic challenge, I found a lantern just hanging outside in one of these boxes. But in this one, it's just a knife, some grass, you know, the basic things I've already mentioned. There is some bony soil, but I've already done my fair share of panning, and honestly, the best thing I can get out of that I actually care about is a candle. But even in here, you'd think there might be a torch holder, and there's not. So overall, I'd just say that my ruin luck and cave luck is kind of below average at this point. It's a bit weird, because, I don't know, I tend to have a little bit better luck than this, and on a world where I could probably use it, I'm not finding anything. Just odd, but I thought I'd show you what a typical ruin, even a decent ruin, kind of ends up being for me. At this point, I've traveled a little more than 10,000 blocks north, and I haven't really seen anything super interesting. I've tried to go in caves and whatnot, but I decided I'm going to start heading west, because that's the other direction I haven't really explored too much, and I thought maybe there'd be something over there. So I'm traveling a little bit northwest, because I'm just trying to get over these hills, and then I'll go mainly west. I'm being kind of careful though, because the sand and the terrain, gravity, and all that other stuff likes to create cave-ins on a regular basis, so I have to be really careful so that I don't end up falling into a pit. And yeah, there's a sandstorm going on right now, which is pretty typical, but it's always scary when you're traversing something like this, because you never know what's gonna happen. Oh no. That's my second death, but what's even worse is that now I'm respawning over by my house, and like I said, that's about 10,000 blocks north. Oh boy. And that fell down a pit, so I have to hope that it didn't go all the way down, or I'm going to be making a lot of ladders. It takes about a day and a half to get back to my items, and yeah, I'm starving and everything, but I am hoping that I can get to those because I have food. I actually just made food not too long ago. And I'm kind of skipping spots and stuff with the ladders, just enough that I don't take fall damage. But it's really scary because when there's sandstorms or when it's cloudy like this, you get this kind of fog effect, and you just can't really see anything. Plus, I'm afraid I'll push my items off, but thankfully, all of that just happened there doesn't cause my items to fall, and I can get my stuff.
Unfortunately, there wasn't anything on the west side either. What you just saw was several hours of exploring with nothing to show for it, so I took a break from exploring to make a cairn. I'm gonna need that anyway if I'm gonna do anything with the leather making, plus it'll be nice to have when my crops finally grow. My first acacia tree has finally grown and I'm excited to harvest it, but unfortunately a temporal storm hits and I have to put that on pause. But honestly, it was a lot of fun. More fun than I've had in a little while because of all the carnage that happened during it. Poking through the gaps in my windows has been a lot of fun to watch the drifters try to hit me and then simultaneously start attacking each other, and it just leaves an entire field of bodies of surface drifters who ended up fighting each other more than they were fighting me. Back to the acacia tree, I made sure that I used shears to get all the leaves so that I could get as many seeds as possible. Thankfully, this one was a big acacia tree, not some tiny one, so I got tons of seeds. I think it was about 7 of them, which is more than double the amount of trees that I was able to grow last time. And after all this time, I decided to make a lantern, the first one I ever had because I was going to need more reliable light. The next morning, I climbed up to the top of my mountain to check on the crops, and I made some bone meal, so I'm going to go ahead and fertilize them with that. Unfortunately, I do not have any phosphorus crops at the moment, just ones that take nitrogen, so this is only going to give about 5% nitrogen, but I figured that would help just a little bit, and I have lots of bones, so why not? Even though I had a little bit of lime in my base, and I am making some leather, I needed a better supply of it. I'm going to need a lot of leather if I want to make full backpacks and everything, so I headed south this time. And I found another hot spring in this world, so that makes 3 for 3 on my videos finding those. I think that's insane. I haven't found one in my main world that has almost 300 hours of play. After an hour of searching, I found borax, which can be used to make leather, though it's a bit odd and I don't really like doing it, because, you know, I guess it's kind of the thing you need to have flux for iron anvils and all that other stuff. It just makes the back of my brain kind of tick funny and not like that, but I want leather more than I want iron anyway, so here we go. Now, anybody who's watched my first 2 videos knows I like mountains, and if you watch me stream, I live on a mountain in my main world. So, yeah, this cave really is speaking to me, and I have to see what's back here because this is awesome, and I really, really want to live back here. I don't know, man. Caves are just really cool. Unfortunately, one thing that's not so cool are locusts, and I kind of get jump scared by one right here because I wasn't expecting one to fall from the ceiling. There was a cage right above me I didn't even see. But I've never seen them swim before, so this is kind of neat, but now I've got to go on pest control duty because this is my house now. Well, it took some doing, but I did manage to build some sort of path to take out the cages and the nests that I found. I think there were about 4 cages and 2 or 3 nests that I had to deal with. Not too bad, and honestly, because the locusts had to swim, they couldn't really get me, so this was relatively safe. It was just a little annoying to try to get up here. Now that I have orcaned my way into the cave, I'm going to live here floating above the center of it, kind of. I thought this would be kind of cool. It's going to protect me from anything that wants to spawn on the sides while still letting me live in the cave, and over time I plan on expanding this so it's going to look really cool, and I want to light up the whole cave someday. One of the things I did was make a tunnel from the top of the mountain where my crops are at to the bottom where the cave is at my house, and I made a back entrance so that I could get here easy. This is a pretty long ladder. It's like 140 blocks long or something like that, but this will give me nice easy access to the crop farm without having to actually somehow juggle up the mountain, which I never really liked, but that was my only way up there before. Also, I traded with the agriculture trader and got pumpkin seeds, so I'm growing those kind of for the first time. In my main world, I've grown the pumpkins, but I didn't really understand how they grew, and I saw that they grew on vines, so here I am, kind of growing them for real for the first time. And this will be a really nice food source, and it also takes phosphorus, which the bone meal can help with. So this is just a really good crop for me to have. I also got some parsnips and flax from that trader, so I have a pretty diverse garden, and I'm really liking this so far. It's just the low fertility soil that's the main handicap for this. The end of the first year is quickly approaching, and I haven't even prospected this area yet, so I'm out there for the last couple of days here, trying to see if I have any cool resources nearby, so when I continue this in a year 2,
I'll be able to start with some cool mining expeditions. Unfortunately, there's not really that much I could talk about here. It's pretty standard metals and stuff. I did get a couple decent hits for iron, but nothing crazy, so no iron yet. But I'm pretty excited to continue this in the future, and prospecting now will help me make a decision on where I want to mine and how I want to advance going forward. I'm also looking for black coal to find fire clay, because until I find fire clay, I'm going to be hindered in tech tree progress. During the final days of my playthrough, I built this cellar as a proper cellar to store items. Since it's always hot, I need a good way of preserving food. And I went back to that first Locust cave I found and started getting revenge on those things and trying to loot whatever they dropped. It's always fun to watch locusts fly out of the cave like that, but it was super dangerous to have a shiver and a whole swarm of locusts after me, so I made something of a tactical retreat. It wasn't even really that worth it, it was just basically for the sheer principle of taking these things out. And with the defeat of the Locust Cave, that takes me to the end of my first year. I'm quite hurt, I'm not doing so well, but you know, I made it. I survived and I did okay. So I think I have a pretty good setup for me, and I'm ready to continue this in another year in a subsequent video. And just like that, 1 year in Vintage Stories Desert is over already. I can't believe it. Honestly, I think a lot of that time was mining and getting clay and everything like that, but still, I feel like I went through this really quickly, even though this is the longest video I've posted yet. So let me know what you think. If you've seen both of these videos, what do you think about them? What do you think is the more challenging of environments? I'm planning on releasing a comparison video soon that talks about both and the challenges in a little bit more detail. But in the meantime, if you want, come visit me on Twitch and see some of these challenges live. Be a part of the action and chat with me. I always appreciate the company. That's going to wrap it up for this video though. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.